Robert Plank Show, episode 84. How to take action. Create a new information product or update an old one. Welcome back to the Robert Plank Show. This is the podcast where we talk about working from home. And today we're going to talk about, first of all, I don't like that term work from home. Today we're going to talk about building a business from home, no matter what niche you are in. And I have a little bit of a confession to make because many times in this podcast, I have a list of bullet points or some talking points because I do like to have some kind of a podcast structure. But the last couple of podcasts we've run, I haven't really had much in terms of notes or things I want to talk about. And I like that better because we end up with some shorter episodes. I write down some things as I talk them, and that way we have the structure after the fact. We have some show notes. But I want you to have your very own podcast. It's so dang helpful. There's so many new ways for people to find you from your podcast, and above all that, other than that it promotes your products and stuff like that, it helps you so much to get clarity on your past mistakes and successes, and it helps you get on track to knowing exactly what it is you need to do next. It's the best internet marketing therapist there is, having a podcast. Even better than blogging because you can just start talking, and heck, you can have some good episodes, some bad episodes, but you yourself control it. So as we're getting started up today, we're going to talk about, I'm going to say that I threw away the original topic I was going to talk about, and we're going to talk today about how to take some action and how to decide that next information product you're going to make, that next thing you have for sale. Do you make a brand new thing, or do you go back and update an old thing? And we're going to figure out some criteria or something as we go along here today. But Steve Jobs says, I normally don't like Steve Jobs quotes because they're kind of boring. There's not much to them. But there's one thing that he said. This is probably the only Steve Jobs quote I'll ever share with you. He says, "You can't connect the dots looking forward. You can only connect them looking backwards. So you have to trust that the dots will somehow connect in your future." And that describes my internet marketing business, and hopefully yours, pretty dang well. Is that we have a thing called 4 daily tasks, where in a given day I only have 4 things on my plate, so to speak. Okay, and one is a 40-minute task, one is a 40-minute task, one is a 40-minute task, and then the other task is a 10-minute, we call it a gimme task, which might be just shoot a quick email broadcast to my list. And so by having this system, every day we make the best use of our probably about 2 hours of time, and even that's being optimistic. We all think that we put in 8 to 10 hours a day, but we really don't. So on a daily basis, I complete 4 of these tasks. These are 4 tasks that actually build my business, so it's not like going to the bathroom. And they are 4 tasks that I can complete. So I'm not saying work on chapter 2, I'm saying finish chapter 2, or I'm saying finish page 30 of my book. So even if you're the least motivated person ever, then you can make one of your tasks that you're going to speak out 5 more minutes of your audiobook, or you're going to write another half a page, and then that way you could go back and see that you actually completed something instead of just chipping away. Because the problem with chipping away is that when you get to 90% done, 95% done, 98% done, then you end up adding more busy work for yourself, so you never really get to 100%. We don't want that. We want you to complete 4 tasks every day. And then as far as like the big picture, where I'm headed and things like that, we have a tool. We use a tool called Google Calendar where we plan out the week. Okay, and so for the week, we have one promotion. And I like that term better, the term like we have a promotion that week, instead of saying I have a project that week, because I used to think in those terms. I used to have the big spiral bound notebook and the whiteboard on the wall and all that stuff that just gets in the way. And I would just plan all kinds of crazy plans for the future. I'm going to sell a web hosting company. I'm going to have a coaching program, all these different things. And then, we end up just starting things and never finishing anything. So for the week, I don't like to think of a project. Project means I'm going in the garage and just planning some stuff. A promotion means we're actually doing something in the moment. And this leads us to a Tony Robbins quote, which is that a real decision is measured by the fact that you've taken a new action. If there's no action, you haven't truly decided. I'll repeat that for you. A real decision is measured by the fact that you've taken a new action. If there's no action, you haven't truly decided. And so we need to get some stuff done, and like I said, 80% of the time you should be in worker mode. So when we sell a lot of our courses, we include as part of that a one-on-one personal coaching bonus. And this isn't the thing that makes a bunch of sales, but I honestly do believe that this easy bonus for us to add in is the thing that pushes a lot of people who are on the fence over the edge and gets them to buy from us. It feels that way, and it feels when people say that, the reason they bought or leave a testimonial or things like that. I honestly think that is the reason why most people who are on the fence get pushed over. And so you can offer this kind of thing too. Like I said, you can offer your own podcast. Go to podcastcrusher.com. We'll give you the steps to set that up. You can also have your own coaching program. And we explain this in our webinarcrusher.com course, but let me just give you the quick details here. We go to a free site, I think it's free, called TimeTrade.com. Let me just bring it up. It's TimeTrade.com. We log into the site called TimeTrade, and this is an appointment scheduler that hooks up to your Google Calendar. Okay. And let me log out. I want to know how much this freaking costs, because I think I pay for it, but it's one of those things where I'm not sure. So if I go to sign up, I guess. Um, Okay, so it's $49 per year with a 15-day trial. That's timetrade.com. And so what you do is you log into this thing called TimeTrade, and then you define blocks of office hours. And you say, well, maybe every Tuesday between 8 and 12 in my time zone, and then Thursday between 8 and 12, I want people to be able to schedule appointments with me. And then you create this appointment, this activity thing that in TimeTrade, and then it hooks up to what's called your Google Calendar. So whenever I have a meeting or something like that, I use Google Calendar. That way it synchronizes to my devices. Okay, so you create an activity, and that's the exact term, the activity. And what that means is that you say, well, someone can register for example, a 30-minute coaching call with me. Okay, and in this activity, you define the length of time of the appointment, and then when someone schedules the appointment, you can also in that step collect the contact information. So what we like to do is by default it asks for their phone number, but then I also ask for their Skype username. Okay, and so basically what this does is then it creates a special link. It's called an activity link, and then you can put this inside of your different members areas. And I mean, I don't think I would give it away for free. I wouldn't meet with someone for free, but if someone even buys just a $50 or $100 product from you, that's huge. And I hear from people all the time who say, well, I've only made 5 sales of this at $100, or my list is only 100 subscribers. Well, that's just great then. That does mean that you might have to put in a little extra effort to convert that small amount of 100 subscribers, but man, will they remember you. And it's easier for me to think of it in terms of uh, of earning my dues, right? Of doing those tough things early on, so that later on it's easier. So that later on, if I charge $1,000 and I have that coaching call, then that's way easier. And so I know that meeting with someone on the phone is really scary and all that nonsense, but it's only scary for about 30 seconds, and they're probably more afraid than you. It's kind of like going on a first date. So we use TimeTrade, and we schedule office hours, and then someone can fill a block of time, and we control how long that block is, and then it adds it to our calendar. So this works out great for us because, well, during the week we just get these appointments added, and it's not too many. It's not like we're on call or jam packed, because we only said that, okay, they can only schedule a appointment with us at 10 a.m. on Tuesday or at 2 p.m. on Tuesday, and that's it. And if they need to schedule something 16 weeks ahead of time, well, then fine. What's also great about this one-on-one coaching bonus kind of thing is that 10% of our buyers even take us up on it, and then half of them cancel just before. I can't control that. I'm not really sure. I feel kind of vulnerable sharing that information with you, and I don't think it's because of me. But sometimes people just say, "Well, I can't make the meeting," or you know, I don't have anything to report or things like that. But when we do meet with them, it's freaking awesome in so many ways. It's awesome because no one else goes to that trouble, and it's not that much trouble for us. So we just meet with them, and I usually get some kind of idea for a podcast or a product or a blog post or a feature for a software product or something from one of those meetings. So it is worth our while. And then a lot of times we I don't know, we just keep getting we might get a testimonial out of someone, but I really get more of an ear to the ground these days because we do these things called coaching sessions. So we do this thing called a coaching session, which I think that you should do as well. So during the week, we just have that week long promotion, and I have my 4 tasks that are usually related to that week long promotion. And then in between there, we have our coaching, the one-on-one bonuses, and then we also have a platinum program. We meet with our platinum students for just some special time, right? Because they pay us thousands of dollars every single month for meeting with them, and that's even better because that way we throw them the screen and they tell us what things need to be knocked out. Now, how about that? If you've been feeling like you don't know what the next logical step is, that you don't have focus, that you don't know what the next goal is, man, some people actually have a handle on what needs to be done. So you need to be more like those people. And then I would say that during the course of the month, I don't like to think too far ahead. Why? Because I used to think 6 months, a year, 3 years ahead of time, and I would be so transfixed on the future that I wouldn't even get today's tasks done. Remember how we said you should be 80% a worker, 15% a manager, 5% an entrepreneur. So during the month, I don't have a lot of things planned ahead of time, but I do want to know what my next product is. Because the thing about information marketing is that you might have been sold on the idea that you can have a solution for someone. You can show someone some results. Show somebody how to get a book published on Amazon. That's our Make a Product course. And the idea is that we have some good information and you teach it once and you might have taught it in 1990 and then decades later it still sells. And nowadays, I mean, it's the tendency for a lot of people to throw things away. And we have our different courses, but I would say that our courses have a lifespan of about 2 or 3 years. And let me explain. I'm not saying that if you bought an older version of Membership Cube, Income Machine, Make a Product, whatever, it still is good information. But the problem is that websites and software and interfaces change. And so the good news about Make a Product, at least, is that Amazon's website looks pretty much the same as it did years ago. But the site we use for transcriptions, they've even changed the name of their site from Odesk to Upwork. So if someone ends up buying Make a Product from years and years ago, they can still kind of figure it out. They can still see the old interface and say, okay, well, I know I can click on that, I go to that, but it's not as sexy of a sale. And if someone went in and logged into that today, there would be a little bit of a disappointment, right? Like a tiny bit of like a buyer's remorse or some kind of regret or something. So just to be realistic, you make an information product and it has a lifespan of about 2 or 3 years. And so what happened after those 2 or 3 years? Well, after those 2 or 3 years, a few things happen. You might have refined your system a lot better, right? Because we're always figuring out new ways to get transcriptions done. Like transcription means we speak out something, someone else types it up. So we might figure out ways of getting it done faster and cheaper and better, or we might have found new ways to market our existing books, or just make the system better so that when you're dealing with those transcribers, it's a lot easier of a process, things like that. So you personally might have refined a system, and so then they get to the point where you refine the system, and then when sales come in, you might feel like a little bad because the course looks just a little bit out of date. And we can fix that by just doing what I like to call a pass on the sales letter and the membership site. So in our course membershipcube.com, we show you how to make what's called a members dashboard with a tool called Table Press. And then I'll go through the sales letter itself. So, a sales letter is what you can see at, for example, profitdashboard.com, and it's a long web page that has convincing, persuasive language to get somebody to buy something from us, right? It tells a story, it identifies and aligns with a problem. It tells people, well, here's the reason why you're here, here's what I went through, here's the solution. It's this product. Here's the stuff in the product. Here's why you should get it right now instead of waiting. That's a basic sales letter right there. So I'll make a pass through that. And because I have been checking out what my competitors are doing and saying all this time, and because we've been having these free coaching calls, which TimeTrade handles, and then we meet on Skype or call them on the phone or something, I get a good handle on what people want to hear, what kind of language I should be using when I'm talking about marketing that book. So I'll just make another quick, 20-minute pass, just going through the sales letter, just making sure everything is up to date enough. But it gets to the point where now you say, okay, this income stream is starting to dry up, or I can see that it could be drying up pretty soon. And so now what do I do? Do I make a new version of this course, or do I make something brand new to sell because I want to replace that income that might be going away soon? And the thing that makes me laugh a lot, especially when I look at internet marketers and things like that, is that the average internet marketer throws their product away way before this. The average launch that I would probably see that is in the back of my head, the average launch probably lasts for a few weeks, and after 30 days it's gone. And not only is it gone, but you didn't even know it freaking ever existed. The web page is gone. You might not even know where to go and log in to get your latest video or anything like that. And it's ridiculous because everyone who's doing this is leaving money on the table. Now, a launch of your product is great. Having a bunch of affiliates to promote you is great if you can pull that off. But then what the heck about, what do you do about this thing that you spent all this time, or maybe even all this money, making a sales letter, making a product, making all this money? You've proven that there is something here that can sell, but then you're throwing that away or throwing out the baby with the bathwater, and then you're going and making something new. And I know that it's sexy for you to make something new, but eventually it's going to catch up to you. There's only so many courses you can make about, well, only so many courses I can make about membership sites, WordPress, PHP programming, list building, stuff like that, until I realized that, well, geez, I've sold 10 products about WordPress. I've sold 10 products about membership site, and a way better solution is to reopen that course that you had previously closed. And so that's kind of why I threw away the notes from earlier today, because I just got off a meeting with my business partner, Lance Tomashiro, and we are redoing our podcasting course. And we recently finished a live course about making money with voiceovers. This is outside the internet marketing niche. And the thing about these things called live webinar classes, here's what you do is you go back to that Google Calendar I told you about, and you say, okay, well, I need to make a course, and it's going to be not written, because why? It takes forever to write stuff, and a book is only worth 99 cents. It's not going to be just video. Why? Well, because what are videos? A bunch of 5-minute clips, and what is that going to be, like 50 bucks? Instead, we do what's called a live webinar course, and when we say a couple things, we say, here's the end goal. Here's what I want someone to do, which is, in this case, I want someone to have a steady income with voiceovers on Fiverr. So then we go back and we figure out 4 milestones that need to be in place so that someone will get to that end goal. And the first milestone should be something really fun and sexy and get big results, like not only, if it's possible, get their first order on Fiverr, but at the very least, get some of their jobs set up. Right? And so we might have to really rush that first module, because we don't want to say, well, module 1 is to set up your Fiverr account. Module 2 is to research some of the good money-making streams you could research. And module 3 is to narrow down your niche and record your demo. And then the final module, you'll start to begin by the end to post your first job. Well, no. We want this to be where the first module, you get the biggest bang for your buck, and then you can only imagine what's in store for you for module 2, 3, and 4. So voiceovers, we had this class and we had an idea for it. We knew what was going to be in it. We knocked out a sales letter, which basically promised all the things that we had planned to show. We knew that we could show these things, but there is something to making the sales letter first. Okay, and that way it makes it easy for you too, because if you decided, remember we talked about deciding versus acting. A real decision is measured by the fact that you've taken a new action. So you've decided what is in this upcoming course. You have it on this thing called a sales letter, and then it's kind of funny because many times if we're planning out the second or third module of a course, I'll go back to the sales letter and say, did we promise this thing, or what the heck were we going to talk about? Well, it's in the sales letter. So we have this thing called the live webinar class where we decide on what the end goal is. That's really important. Then what the 4 milestones are going to be. And so in these milestones, let's just say that to keep it simple, we're going to meet once per week on the same day of the week and the same time of day. And we're going to meet for about 60 to 90 minutes, plan on 60, end up being up 90, where we show a PowerPoint and we list about 6 different points, 6 different areas we're going to cover, and then we just go through and talk about that first area, leave the PowerPoint, show something on the screen like in recording voiceovers, or if you're doing real estate, how to set up a real estate listing, I don't know. And we get through those 6 points, and then we wrap up with a thing called a challenge. Okay? And so this is what we did for this voiceover success formula class, and it was great. My business partner Lance Tamashura was the presenter, and people got some crazy, crazy results. And the biggest one is because a lot of them made their first money with voiceovers after years and after spending thousands of dollars on audio equipment and stuff like that. So we finish up that kind of course, and then, well, now what's the next step? Well, the next step is not to move on to the whatever the next exciting thing is. The next step is to then reopen this course. So, like I said, we figured out the course, the end goal, the milestones, and then the live webinar date. So we use this tool called GoToWebinar, and what we did is we said that we're going to meet every week on these different dates and times. Okay, and then we got people involved in it. And what's great about having a live webinar class is that people are motivated to go ahead and do things, because if they just had an unlimited amount of time to review your videos whenever they felt like it, they wouldn't be as motivated. So it's definitely a different experience being a student in a live webinar class. And it's great too because people can type in questions in what's called the chat box, and no one else can see their questions, so we can kind of pick and choose which ones we want to work in and stuff like that, and we don't have one person just spamming or trolling or heckling the whole entire class. So we do all that, and now we have videos recorded. Okay, so we have videos from the live session, we have assignments at the end of those sessions, and then usually in part of this course, whatever course we're teaching, we have some amount of the secret sauce. And usually that's like a tool or a template, usually templates, usually some kind of cut and paste text or a form or a checklist in each and every module that people can use, sometimes multiple things per module. So we have all that done. And then what do? Well, then we can go and get the video transcribed, the words we spoke out in the video, get them typed up, and then I will take out still screenshots from the video and then sandwich them into that PDF transcript. So now somebody has a document. And some people like to print them out, take notes, highlight them. Some people are in a hurry and just want to just skim the transcripts and get the same information. Some people want to have the transcript open and watch the video. That way they're totally sure they absorb exactly what there is to be absorbed. You can do it a lot of different ways. But we have this thing called a PDF transcript made, and that's super great now because now we have the video in our members area. We have the PDF transcript, and then we can bundle all those transcripts together, and we use a service called lulu.com to get it bound into a nice manual that's cheap for us, but we can control the printing of that. So normally if you, for example, put the transcripts of your course on, say, Amazon on CreateSpace, anyone could buy that, right? and anyone could review it. And we want to keep the publishing of it private. That's why we use this tool called lulu.com. So we open up this course again and we go and make a pass on the sales letter and make it evergreen. We remove mentions of dates or of weeks or things, and the new offer is just that. Well, it's almost the same sales letter, right? Because they still have this need, which is to make money from voiceovers. We still have this solution, which is our 4-part step-by-step system to getting it all set up. And now it's a matter of, well, what are they getting? Well, before, the course hadn't been created yet. So before, they would join and they get a few bonuses or tools or things like that, but then they'd see a link to register for those upcoming dates for the upcoming webinar training. Well, now the course is done. So it doesn't make any sense to take these videos you already made and maybe, I don't know, redo them. Or I've seen people try to drip them out week after week. I've seen people try to rerun them as fake live webinars where the videos, the recording, the materials already created, but then I still have to show up at Tuesday at 5 p.m. just to watch it. Now that seems really freaking silly. So what we end up doing, just to cut out all that silliness, is to take the videos that we had all created and we just post them. So now the deal is, for the same price that they paid for the live class, now you get the whole thing up front. So now you can go at your own pace. Now the transcripts and things are already done. And then you might be thinking, well, shouldn't I discount that? Because beforehand they were paying for a personal one-on-one experience. Well, not really. No, they weren't. You weren't unmuting every single student in the class. You are working in their questions, you're working in their issues, and anyone who joins afterwards, they're going to have mostly the same issues. If there's something that came up, they're going to have mostly the same roadblocks that everyone else in the class had. So there's nothing really new to be added. And if you really feel that way, if you really feel like you've got to add something, then add in that TimeTrade one-on-one coaching call that we told you about. But be really careful about discounting the price of your stuff just because you feel like that's the right thing to do, or discounting just because your own personal confidence is kind of low. So if you can, and you should, if you charged $497 for that live 4-week class, then the complete, and don't call it the replay or any of the recordings, but the complete course now is also $497. And if you really feel, like we said, if you really feel like you have to discount it or something, then add value, don't discount. Add the one-on-one coaching call. Add the Lulu manual. Go to a site called Kunaki, that's Kunaki, and sell a DVD set, right? A set of DVDs in a box as well. So you can add an extra, session, whatever. But if you run a thing called a live webinar course before, it just doesn't make sense to not reuse those old recordings and make one more pass at it and make a bunch of extra sales from people who just couldn't make it into the live course as a student the first time around. So that's that part. But then it comes into, okay, well, great. So I've run a live webinar course. I made a bunch of money there. Then I've opened it back up and made it so that it's a go at your own pace kind of course. But then a couple years pass, and then maybe you repeat this too. Maybe while that course is selling, you go over and do a new live course, whatever. But while that is happening, eventually something's going to get out of date, right? Some website or interface will change things, or you just feel like, well, if I were to redo that today, nowadays, I would do almost every module completely different, or there'd be something huge and drastically different in every single module. So this is where you don't want to do this. You don't want to go on this path a month or even 2 months later, but at least a year later, maybe even 2 years later. And like I said, I don't plan this out ahead of time, but I just realized that we're connecting the dots after they happen by looking backwards. Years later, I'll say, okay, well, it's been a couple of years since we have run our membership cube course, our podcasting course. And so now this is the point in the training call, in the podcast we're talking here, where I need to figure out what is the criteria for me redoing an old course. And let me just kind of list out a couple of things, just kind of summarize what we talked about so far. So if I look at, say, Podcast Crusher, the first thing is, has it been at least a year? Okay, has it been at least 1 year since I've put out training on Amazon FBA or training on making a book? Has it been long enough where I'm redoing a course to make it exciting and not just going through the motions? So has it been at least a year? The next question is there something huge in each module that I would redo? In each module that I would redo, okay? And the thing I want you to avoid here is the laziness, because it's really tempting to just say, well, I'm going to make Podcast Crusher 2. Let me just go and grab my old PowerPoints and I'll just reteach that. And if I see a bullet point and if I say something that isn't valid today, I'll just skip over it. It sounds good in theory, but then you end up with a crappy course. You end up being on the spot, and you end up saying, "Oh shoot, I should have I forgot about this thing I had to add in. I didn't want to have this bullet point here right in my face." So we do want to replan the course. And something happened today that I want to share with you is that we were planning Podcast Crusher 2.0, right? So this is a course where the very first module we have you record your first podcast episode, put it online, get it submitted to iTunes, great. And then after that, we have you make a second episode with music, with special tagging, and then the next module is then to get traffic. The next module is then to make money from your podcast. But I didn't just want to rehash. I wanted, and the reason for that is because some people who bought Podcast Crusher 1 years and years ago, I want them to buy Podcast Crusher 2. But it's kind of a weird tightrope to walk, especially from a copywriting point of view, because I don't want to say, well, you know that podcast you never created because you bought my original course? Why don't you buy my new course and you'll actually make a podcast? We don't want that, but we want to tell people that, well, maybe you've made a podcast and it's died and you want to bring it back. Maybe you made a podcast and you kind of burned out on it and you want to do better. Maybe you want to make a second podcast. Maybe you want to know how podcasts are done in this modern day and age because so much has changed. So I didn't want to just rehash it. And so what happened when we planned it, and our planning always goes great, it always goes the best if there's two of us at least planning things, right? And so it's me and my business partner Lance Thomas Shiro. I show my screen. I bring up a tool called FreeMind, and this way we can just list some stuff out. And when we're listing stuff out, there are no bad ideas. And so the thing about us planning courses is that usually I end up loading up too much stuff. And then Lance tells me, well, you're not going to have time for this, not going to have time for that. But I'm thinking, okay, well, let's silence the Lance voice for now and just list a bunch of stuff. And then because we use this tool called FreeMind, we can rearrange and say some of this goes into the module about traffic. This goes in the module about setup. And then if Lance or whoever says, well, there's still too much, I can rearrange, but it's easier to edit crap than air. So we ended up saying, well, if someone's going to make a podcast in this day and age, let me list a bunch of random stuff, put it in the necessary boxes for module 1, 2, 3, and 4, and I looked at it, and it ended up being pretty darn similar to the first Podcast Crusher. Only we use a lot of cool different stuff. We use a different software to record it. We have a lot of ways to get traffic. Lance has been in the top 10 and the top 20 of iTunes for quite a while. We have ways in social media to put our promotion of podcast episodes in an infinite loop. We have ways of when we publish a new podcast episode, it automatically posts to Twitter. So every module has a lot of new cool stuff. And in fact, it's not only more accepted in this day and age to make a podcast, but you can do it all with free software where before you couldn't. So Podcast Crusher 2 is a huge step up, but the overall structure of it is very similar to Podcast Crusher 1. And so I'm glad that we took that route of dumping in a bunch of new ideas and then rearranging it, because I realized that, okay, I ended up at the same conclusion as Podcast Crusher 1 as far as what's in it, what are the results, where we put stuff where. And so I knew that we got to that conclusion because it made sense, not just because we were being lazy and just copying some PowerPoint slides from years and years ago. So that's what I want you to think about is if you have, first of all, if you have courses that you haven't promoted in a while, whether they're live webinar classes or not, but if you have something that you used to sell, look back and see if it was that bad or if it wasn't, and then go back and um, ask yourself, has it been at least 1 year since I launched this, since I put out this product, and because that way that avoids you redoing a course every month, because there's someone who teaches WordPress, and every time WordPress like 4.51 comes out, they throw out all their videos and redo it. That seems like a lot of work. I'd rather just do it every year or a couple years. Then we think, is there something huge in each module that's different this time around? And then I guess the final thing that I would ask in your little checklist is there something sexy? Is there a sexy hook I can add? Okay? And that sexy hook might just be like, well, you can have a podcast going today. You can have a podcast going in an hour. A lot of the times, the sexy hook is speed and maybe ease of use too. Maybe it's just like, well, you can push a button and it's all done for you. In the hard way, you had to do this, 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 this. In the new way, you push the one button and it's done. And I think that's a good place to wind down today's call and wrap things up, is that you need to have some kind of a sexy hook. And I know it's easy to fall, there's a few traps to fall into, right? One trap is to be the academic and say, I'm just going to teach the way I want to teach, and I'm going to teach the encyclopedia, and I'm going to load up this with 100 different tips. And so that way, if someone joins and they get just one of those tips, it's worth the $500 that they bought. And you think that's a good idea, but then when you have to write a sales letter, or you put out a sales letter or a landing page and you wonder why it's not converting, it's because you didn't have a cool story to hook them in, and the results that you promised just weren't there, right? And you can't promise just you'll learn a bunch of facts, because that's not exciting. Tell me what I'm going to get out of it, and not just the things that I'm going to so-called learn. Now, the ideal situation should be that there is some kind of an arms race between you and your competitors. Maybe not directly, but it, the average person I know has a hard time even looking or thinking about their competitors. And you need to look at what they're doing, because many times, well, first of all, many times they're copying you, and that's painful in itself, right? You make a podcasting course. Well, then next thing you know, there's 5 or 10 other podcasting courses. But not all of them are exact copies, and you're going to notice by just even not necessarily buying your competitors, but look at what they do and look at what it seems they copied from you. And many times they'll copy it better, right? And so maybe that means that you put out a podcasting course, competitors put out podcasting software. Maybe there's a podcasting checklist or something. Maybe one of the bonuses they add is that they will appear on your show and vice versa. Or I saw something where one podcasting course, they added in all of the podcasting students' feeds, to use a technical term, into one master feed, right? Into one master podcast. So this is kind of a cool idea, because you can have your own podcast, right? You can put out your own blog, have your own podcast, your own listing on iTunes. So like right now I have the Robert Plank Show. And what this particular person did was they said, well, if you have the Robert Plank Show and you join my podcasting course, well, then my listing for the Super Podcasting Students Show, every episode of the Robert Plank Show that you put out will also appear on the Super Podcasting Student Show. So I'm thinking, so now there are some new changes that can be absorbed by these competitors, and maybe I'll absorb that, and next thing I know that they'll put out a new version of their course with the thing I added plus something else. So everyone copies. Don't think that you invented the opt-in page. Don't think that you invented the first ever training course on WordPress. Everybody copies, but some people copy lazily and some people copy with the intent to improve, and you yourself can do that too. And I mean, there's something to be said about seeing what the competitors are doing and then building a better mousetrap. That way you're not just copying, but you're in fact doing a better job. And as we're talking and we're winding down today about making information products, and by the way, the best place to go for that is membershipcube.com. I'll show you how to make your own membership site, which doesn't necessarily mean a forever monthly recurring site. It can be just a single payment site, but you make a membership site, which means that someone can be a member of that site. You make that product, competitors come out, you absorb the changes, make the next version in a couple of years. And many times you can even look at this as version 2.0 of your podcasting course or whatever the heck it is, or your voiceover course. You can look at it as, well, your competitor is your past self, and you want to one up yourself. And not necessarily one up yourself in terms of the number of hours that you so-called work or the number of videos that are in the site, but one up yourself in the huge results your students will get with podcasting, with webinars, with books. And every time that I've noticed that every time that we've redone a course, and the biggest one is our Webinar Crusher course over the years, we've done it 5 times. Webinar Crusher is up to version 5.0 right now, but say like Mega Product is up to version 3, and every time we find a way to make it a lot simpler. We find a way to remove extra steps or extra software or extra things to look for. And that should be your goal as well, is that you have your brand new real estate course, your brand new voiceover course. And this time around, you're going to find a way to give people bigger, faster, and easier results because you have a better handle on it, because the technology and everything has improved. So now people get more by doing less, by even learning less. And then the sales letter can become more and more results driven, whether that's testimonials, whether that's screenshots. But I just think that it's a lot more powerful to show people who are excited after buying your course and getting results from it. It's a lot more exciting to show a screenshot of Fiverr earnings saying, I made all this money from voiceovers. You show a screenshot of your membership site saying, I've got this many members in my site. And that gets to the point, that gets the job done a lot quicker than trying to convince someone about my story, my journey with membership sites. Well, no, show me the screenshot. Well, great. Do you want this? Join the course. So take some action and create those information products. But then if it comes time where you feel like the income from some of those products are dying off, then look at, has it been at least a year? Is this something huge in each module that I would redo? And then what sexy hook can I add to get people salivating at the mouth for getting access to this membership site? And now in the new version, there are 100 graphic templates. In this new version, there's some kind of a traffic exchange built in. In this new version, there's a bunch of checklists. Or in this new version, I'll meet with you one-on-one. Whatever the new stuff is, add to it. And make a course, make a product that you're not just going to tear down in a month, because it makes no sense. If you have consistent traffic, if you have affiliates, if you're running paid advertisements and retargeting, if you're even making just a trickle, just a few extra sales of that per month, it makes sense for you to keep it online as opposed to throwing it away because you might be bored with it, but people who need this problem solved probably won't be. And you might be bored with it, but if it makes you enough money, you're going to find a way to not be bored with it because the money is good and the money is getting something for doing nothing. You already put in the hours, you already did the work, you already made that course, that product, that membership site. So why wouldn't you want to get paid for it over and over again? Thanks for tuning in to the Robert Plank Show, episode 84, how to take action to create a new information product or update an old one. Be sure to rate us on iTunes by going to robertplanksshow.com/iTunes. Give us a 5-star rating and review. It helps keeps us rising in the rankings, even though I might stumble over my words sometimes. And email me at robert.plank@gmail.com and let me know what you think about the podcast in general. I always like hearing from you. This is the Robert Plank Show,